In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the different types of connectivity devices use to connect to the SAN. Traditionally, devices would connect to the fiber channel switched fabric at different speeds, and these speeds are a little bit different than what you see in your Ethernet network. For instance, as you can see, typical speeds today are 8 gigabit, 16 gigabit, and potentially later on up to 32 gigabit. And previously, they would connect at speeds starting at 1 to 2 to 4, and then 8, 16, and 32. Now, when a new speed comes out for fiber channel, usually the last one drops off. So if a switch supported fiber channel connectivity at 1 and 2 gigabits, and 4 came out, then it would usually connect at 2 and 4, and the 1 would drop off the bottom. In most cases, the switch will try to detect at what speed the device is trying to connect at, as long as you have the appropriate SFP in the switch. So for instance, if you're trying to connect a 2 gig host, you want to have a SFP that supports maybe 2 and 4 gig in your switch. There are also different speeds that devices connect at over FCOE. For instance, 10 gig and 40 gig, depending upon the type of Ethernet connection that you have. Devices connect to the fiber channel network using port types. Now, there are multiple port types in a fiber channel network. For instance, there is an N port type, which is a node port type. The node port type is a port type that is normally used by a server or storage device or a tape drive. The F port type stands for a fabric port type, and that is usually found on a switch. If I connect two switches together, I normally use an E port type or an expansion port type. And if I'm going to trunk over that expansion port, then I would use a TE port type. These port types are very important to remember as you're configuring your storage area network, as well as they may be included on the exam. So please spend some time getting to know them. This slide is a more in-depth explanation of the different types of port types that you'll see on switches and hosts and storage devices that connect to the network. For instance, down in the lower right-hand corner, an end host or an end node that tries to connect to the fiber channel switch is going to present itself as an N port. The fiber channel switch will be an F port or a fabric port. In FCOE, we connect over Ethernet, and we actually create virtual instances of these ports. So you'll see right below that there is a virtual node port and a virtual fabric port, and we'll learn more about that later on. We talked a little bit earlier about expansion ports or ISL ports, how we connect two fiber channel switches together in the upper right hand corner. You can see that I have my E port or expansion port. I also have my trunking expansion port, which is the second one down. And then finally on the bottom for FCOE, we create a virtual E port. Hopefully you're seeing a pattern. With FCOE, we reuse our port types, put a V in front of them for virtual, and we do the same exact thing that we do with the fiber channel protocol over that Ethernet protocol. Also, in later lessons, we're going to learn about NPV. This is another way to connect to a fiber channel switch. And you can see if I'm using fiber channel, my NP port connects to an F port or a fabric port. Whereas if I'm using FCOE, my VNP port connects to a virtual fabric port. As I mentioned before, please feel free to listen to this a couple of times and spend some time becoming familiar with these different port types, because they're very important in your fiber channel network and they will most likely be on the exam.